It's transfer portal season, and the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away. And the way that Coach Prime is operating right now here at Colorado, it appears that he's doing a lot of taking and giving. So he is being an equal opportunity swap meter, as we could say. And so let's talk about the players that have hit the transfer portal for Colorado so far and what Coach Prime has pulled out of it. So before we do that, hop in the comments. Y'all know I like to hear from you all. Let me know your thoughts on what Coach Prime is doing when it comes to transitioning players in and out of the program. Do you like the direction that they're going? Do you see an end to what's going on? If you're new to the channel, hit that like, subscribe, and the bell notification and join the family. We're on the drive for 10,000 at 8,500. So we appreciate you all pulling up, especially those that pull up for my Colorado content on top of my Oklahoma content and college football in general. We are always here having a good time. But with that, I wanted to dive right into Colorado's emphasis on the transfer portal. And so there was an article that was published not too long ago, and in that video, Coach Prime talked about how one of the focuses for him is going to be that transfer portal. He's going to bring in some more talent. He said it in his introductory that he was coming and he was bringing his luggage, and it was Louis. And so as you watch things transpire, the transfer portal has reopened here on April 15th. And since then, Colorado so far has 7 players that have hit the portal. And outside of that, they did bring in a couple of graduate transfers, and we'll talk about those additions at the end of the video. But I want to go through and look at some of these players that decided to leave, because it seems like there was a heavy emphasis on defensive players that decided to leave out. And so when I do the calculations on this, you've got 3 from the secondary, 2 from the defensive line, and then 1 of them in the linebacker corps that's decided to take their talents elsewhere. And when I did my review of the roster here, it looked like it was a lot of the younger players, some from the class of 2022 and 2021. And so Coach Prime is taking advantage of the opportunities that the transfer portal does provide in being able to flip your entire roster and make yourself a contender very quickly. And so Colorado fans, you all should be excited about this. I surely am. I want to see Colorado compete in the Pac-12 and definitely cause some problems, and then hopefully move to the Big 12 next season and compete there as well, because it's always good when you have an old school national champion come back and become revived. And Colorado looks like they're on pace to do that. And so taking a look at this, especially with the recruits that have already come in from the last class, Coach Prime's first, in theory, class since he came in December, his first piecemeal class, we'll call it. He brought in some pretty solid secondary players. You know, you've got the Cormani McClain, the 5-star out of him. You've got the Travis Hunter, who can play either side of the ball, which I think that he's going to settle at the wide receiver spot. But you all have a lot of potential players, and then bringing in the number 1 transfer rated class coming in, and you brought in a lot of potential monsters that can walk in, and it looks like they're taking people's jobs day one. And so we'll look through the depth chart later this week before the spring game. But right now, as I'm looking at this, let's talk about the players that decide to leave out. First off, you had Nico Reed. Nico Reed is in the secondary. He's a corner, sophomore, 5'10", 160. He was part of that 2021 class out of California, and he got there, and it looks like he's not going to get the opportunity to actually play. So he has entered that portal there on the 15th, along with Keyshawn Mills and Dylan Dixon, 2 additional players from the secondary. Keyshawn is a 2022 freshman. He's actually a freshman on the team, 6 foot 187, out of Little Elm, Texas. So I'm expecting him to end up somewhere in the Texas area, probably going back closer to home to play. And then Dylan Dixon, he comes out of Pearland, Texas. He was another 3-star, 6'2" safety, 190. And because of the reshaping that we're seeing from that secondary there at Colorado and the players that Coach Prime brought in, it makes sense for these players to decide to go look elsewhere. I think the only thing that concerns me, if I had a concern, is that these players are still so young. It makes me wonder what the depth is going to look like long term. Now, granted, we talked about before this that Coach Prime's going to be dabbling into the transfer portal. And there's a lot of players that have already put their name in on April 15th during this 15-day window. I'm expecting a lot of names to come out of the portal. Those that are underclassmen will definitely make some moves, and you will definitely see a lot of graduate players. Now, I'm sensing the focus is going to be on your graduate transfers, mainly because of two things. One, they can transfer as many times as they want to now, so they've graduated college. The second thing is a lot of them have the experience to play today. And that feels like the formula that Coach Prime is going to go with to go out there and win. So that's the secondary players. Nico Reed, you got Keyshawn Mills, as well as Dylan Dixon. So good luck to them as they find new homes. We'll see where they end up. From there, you had some defensive linemen as well as a linebacker that populated. You had Ryan Williams, a redshirt freshman out of Pearland, Texas as well, 6'5", 260. He's in the transfer portal. And Tyus Martin, another redshirt freshman, 6'4", 318 on the defensive line. And then Caden Ludwig, who is the linebacker that's in the portal, and he's out of Oregon. So when I saw that these defensive linemen headed out, made me think about the defensive linemen that are coming in. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely not an opportunity to play, but it's the question I have with it is you've got young players that are leaving the program. And so depth-wise, the team should be fine. They're going to bring in some additional players. There's a lot of talent out there that I know that they are looking at. And so I'm not too concerned around that part. Then you got the offensive side of the ball that, jumped out. You had Jaylee Stacks, sophomore running back, 6 foot, 225 pounds, out of Inglewood, Colorado. So he's a local player. And the fact that he is going to leave kind of jumped out to me. He's played in 17 career games. So he's one of those players that's actually had some game time out there. Junior, did not see him actually leaving. I thought that he'd be one of those players that would stick around and really grow some things. But nevertheless, he may be thinking that there's an opportunity to really get some start there when you brought in Cavassier Smoke at running back. Yeah, you got a lot of players to compete with, and it may have been one of those situations. And I like to remind everybody when I talk about these players in the transfer portal, it's not always just the player that decides to do this. A lot of the times the coaches do encourage that they go shop around because there's a chance that they're not going to get much playing time. Granted, it makes sense when you're bringing in a bunch of transfers. That's going to happen along with your own recruiting classes. All coaches want to have their own players there, and nobody's exempt from the situation. So hopefully Mr. Stacks finds himself a home. And then you had tight end Austin Smith, who was a redshirt sophomore out of the El Monte, Texas area. And all of these players were 3 stars in their recruiting bios. And so as you saw the pictures of them, they had some talent. They came out, to try to, build some things at Colorado. And Coach Prime, like I mentioned, has decided that he's going to move forward with living in the transfer portal. He's got a couple of players coming through. One from his coach, Sean Lewis, his old stomping grounds, and Bill O'Boyle. They brought in Jack Bailey as a redshirt senior. He is a graduate transfer, 6'5", 290, really good player that I believe, is doing, he's going to go walk out there. He's going to understand the Kent State offense, which Sean Lewis did. So he'll know the offense walking in, and he'll know exactly what to do to take over. And so it's always good to bring in a player that potentially can start day one, especially on the offensive line. That experience is key. And like I mentioned, the portal giveth and they taketh away. They got Jack Bailey about a week ago. And they also added in a defensive lineman that can be a contributor day one. Former Old Dominion defensive lineman Devy Harris. Now, Devy is another graduate transfer. He spent 2 years at Minnesota, so he's played Big Ten football, big time football, and then he transferred to Old Dominion, where he recorded 32 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks last season. So he's played in the Big Ten, played over at Old Dominion, and now he will finish up at Colorado. And there's a good chance that he's going to probably get a lot of playing time as well, going through that rotation. Remember, with Colorado, they're going to be playing that fast-paced offense, and so depth is critical for them on the defensive line, which is why those earlier players, the younger ones that they decide to let walk, kind of only concerns me in that capacity. You're going to need a lot of players to handle that high tempo offense that's going on, because the defense is going to have a chance of being on the field a lot too. On top of that altitude there in Colorado, it's a monster. But I think Coach Prime and them will be fine. Those are the players right now that hit the portal. You're going to see a lot of that coming down the line for the next 15 days. Well, 12 days right now as we go into April 30th. And so I'll definitely be on the beat. Probably will drop some more videos as well as shorts kind of pointing out players that are bouncing. And so thanks for pulling up and checking out the channel. Hop in the comments now. Let me know what your thoughts are. We'd love to hear what you all are feeling around these players hitting the portal, as well as these new players coming in, Jack Bailey, as well as Devi Harris. If you're new to the channel, hit that like, subscribe, and the bell notification, and join the family. We're on that trek for 10,000, and I would love for you to join us on this ride. So we'll have another video coming soon. YouTube says to watch one of these videos in front of me. I highly recommend going ahead and diving in and learn about the coaching staff. We'll talk in a couple of days. Peace.